Hey, what is up, everyone? Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles. I am Donnie, your host, and with me is a man whose favorite movie for going to get beer is Smokey and the Bandit. What's up, Dale?
That's right, baby. Eastbound and down.
Loaded up in trucking.
That's right.
What's going on, bud? How are you today?
Oh, doing well. How about yourself?
I am great.
Oh, it's going to be good today, huh?
Absolutely. What we got going on?
Well, we got something special today, Donnie.
We got a special episode?
That's right.
Special episode.
It's an idea that you and I have been kicking around for a while. And so we decided we'd try it out, and we're going to do it as a bonus episode. So it's a little bit different from what we usually do. But it's still true crime related in a sense. But so we're going to have an interview with a blood artist today.
Blood artist?
Yeah, Ryan Almighty. He is a professional weirdo and human blood artist.
Oh, man.
So this is going to be a ride. So put on your seatbelts. It's going to be a little more over the top than we usually are. It's definitely not an episode about, a certain event or something, but I think it's going to be fun.
I think it is too.
So I can't wait to get into this and hear his story. He's a fascinating guy. We'll put it that way.
All right, here we go, Dale. Here is Ryan Almighty.
Hello.
What's up, man? How's it going?
What is up?
Good.
Awesome.
Good. Can't complain. Just kind of holed up in the cave,
That's it. Welcome to the Crack House Chronicles. How are you today, sir?
I'm doing fan-fucking-tastic. How about you guys?
We're doing pretty
great.
good. Pretty good.
We're great.
Try not to talk all over myself, but you know how it is. All right, man. So today we got Ryan Almighty on the show today. It's a big special occasion. We're doing a bonus show, and we're glad to have you, and I appreciate you giving us some of your time today, brother.
Absolutely.
Oh, my pleasure. How could I say no?
Oh, all right. So
I'm always down to go hang out at the Crack.
That's a good place to be, is it not?
Well, it's just so much good pussies can be found at a Crack House,
That's
and,
right.
and by good, I mean easy.
All right, man. So we'll go back to the beginning. You and I met at Joe Young's memorial service. That's correct, right?
Right. Yes, indeed.
Yeah, and so we've been friends ever since then. So I'd like to go back. So let's go back to how you got started in just art in general and into your graphic design background and tattoos.
Well, I mean, I got started really as a child because I was kind of a loner, and what I did to entertain myself was draw and paint and all of that kind of thing. And then eventually I went on to I went to art school. Yes, I'm formally trained, as much as I'm almost ashamed to say it. And then, and of course, while in my formative years, I got into punk rock, and so I've done a lot of graphic art for different punk bands and that kind of thing. So that's just kind of what got the ball rolling.
Oh, cool, man. So you were in the punk band too, correct?
Yeah, well, years ago, I was in a band called Victor 44 and the Act Out. Ironically enough, my buddy, his name was Francis then. Now it's Sonny Harlan, who is now in the Murder Junkies, was the guitar player.
Okay. I didn't know that. Cool. Okay, so then you went from there to doing what? You just started just getting into true crime and that kind of stuff as your...
Well, I'd always been into that. Now, before the age of the internet, you had to work a little harder to get the addresses, and I was pen pals with like John Wayne Gacy and Otis Toole and a couple other unsavory characters. And actually, it was through doing that I actually first met SAMMYTOWN from FANG, because I got a hold of him while he was on vacation.
Oh, that's cool. So you were away true crime before it was cool.
Yeah. Now it's a little too easy, and it's gotten really weird. I got to be honest. I've actually distanced myself from it because the collectors are worse than the convicted killers. I mean, you want to talk about a bunch of backstabbing little troublemaking bitches. Yeah, the age of the internet really changed the game as far as murderabilia collecting. People collect inmates like there's some kind of like playing cards, and then they manipulate them and get a hold of them. You don't want to interact with this person who happens to be their competition because they're going to exploit you and rip you off while they're exploiting and ripping them off. It's just beyond fucked up, and got to the point where I was like, I got a big enough collection. I'll find a few things here and there, but I'm not going to interact with the circles anymore. And I'm not real big on writing the inmates anymore either. So I have quite a collection I've amassed, and I still find it all interesting, but it's not really much of a passion at this point.
Oh, cool. So
it seems like everybody out there has a true crime memorabilia website.
Oh, right. Well, it's and let me definitely stress it's not the collectors are actually pretty cool people, but things have really changed since the days of like Merle Allen and Rick Station and people like that collecting, when they had to actually go to the extra mile to find these addresses. The ones that have like the auction houses or murder auction or any website that has overpriced memorabilia, those people are fucking nuts, and they're backstabbers, and they're real fucking trouble.
Oh shit! So you got a pretty good collection yourself, right? Because you have like a museum.
Oh yeah. I got some John Wayne Gacy paintings, an Ed Gein signature. That's pretty cool.
Oh wow.
Just a ton of stuff. A bunch of Charles Manson stuff.
Oh sweet. Yeah, my wife, she was from Wisconsin, so she didn't live too far from Plainsfield. So that's kind of cool.
Oh, she ever make the trip to Plainfield? That's quite an interesting thing. I went there once about 20 years ago, and it was during a snowstorm, and we drove into town, and it's a tiny ass town, and we stopped at a truck stop on the outskirts, and this was probably about maybe 2 or 3 in the morning while there's a snowstorm. So we asked the waitress, "So can you tell us where Ed Geim's farmhouse was?" And that was a mistake. So we basically had the cops following us through town. We saw the graveyard he was buried in, although we didn't go in. We saw the warden's hardware store, or what it is now. Yeah, it's not warden's anymore.
Right.
And we basically turned around and left because we just, sometimes you can just smell trouble.
Yeah, a little too much heat in a snowstorm.
Yeah, they're not proud of their most famous resident in Plainfield.
Yeah, you were pretty much at Ed Gein ground zero right there.
Oh yeah, and like I said, I don't think the town folks appreciated their relatives being dug up and turned into lampshades and such. So
No.
or the infamy that their town gained from the Mr. Eddie. So
Yeah, I'm sure that was a little sideways. So how long before you started dabbling into blood art? Is that anywhere close to here, or are we still got a story
the blood
to go?
art? I started about 10 years ago. And it's actually an interesting story. I think you're going to like this because it kind of fits into the whole, kind of scum punk kind of thing.
Okay, cool.
I was dating a young lady by the name of Liz Mankowski, and a lot of people know her because she was the one that found Gigi dead. She was the one that was on Jerry Springer with him. And she was, let's just say the relationship was tumultuous.
I got you.
And we made a trip to New York City. Now, backtracking a little bit, Carrie Clayton, Jeff Clayton's daughter, wanted me to do a Baphomet for her boyfriend's drumhead.
Oh.
And so it was kind of on the burner, I was just going to hook her up, and so I'll get back to the whole thing. Lizzie and I made a vacation to New York City where we, and this was more her drug of choice than mine, but let's just say an 8-ball was consumed over the vacation, and it was one giant fight, one argument after another.
Right. And
when I was driving back, and she was sleeping peacefully next to me. And at that point, I was so fucking pissed. I was like, what the fuck did I get myself into? Is like, dating somebody because they happen to, be involved with Gigi Allan was about the biggest fucking mistake I ever made in my life. And at that point, she'd already moved into my house. But anyway, we're driving back, and I'm looking at her sleeping peacefully after it was, like I said, one constant fucking fight. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to paint this drum head, but I'm going to paint it in my own blood. And being I have horns and shit, I'm going to take pictures of me drawing the fucking blood out. And, that's going to make it interesting. And somehow, and it just went from there. So as much as, I just kind of shit talked Lizzie, I will say for her, she was the most, she's definitely a muse. I mean, she attaches herself to creative people, and there's so much turmoil that comes out of it. You can't help but to be inspired one way or another. So I don't regret anything with her. And when I look back, I got to hand it to her. If anybody was the inspiration for that and the muse for me to start painting in human blood, it was her. So cheers, Lizzie, wherever you are.
Oh, cool. So Carrie's, was that what the first one you did?
That was the first one I did. So Carrie actually has the very first blood painting I ever did.
Oh, awesome. All right. So then where do we go from here?
Well, after that, I actually liked the way it felt to paint with, and I started getting a little experimental with it. So at that point, I started trying to do portraiture. And I'd seen people paint in human blood before, but it was always very simplistic at that point. Like I'd seen Sapa von Cyborg do it. And then I started looking into other people. When I started doing it, there was only about 5 people that were painting in blood, and that was Sampa von Cyborg, Maxime Tacardi, I think I might have butchered his name. He's French, a guy from France. Vincent Castiglia from New York City. and Reverend Mayer from Australia. Now, all of them had different styles. Reverend Mayer used an airbrush. Vincent Castiglia did like these Dali-esque surreal, paintings. Sampa did portraiture, but it was super simple,
right.
Simplistic. And Maxime would do these kind of almost these illustrative, dark, occultish type imagery. So I was doing straightforward portraiture, which I already used to do portraits anyway in oil paints. And I just kind of incorporated a watercolor style, so I was doing more realistic illustrative portraiture. And the funny thing is, now there's you can't count how many blood painters there are. And not to pat myself on the back, but every single one of them, nobody's done anything original since this group of people, and you can see exactly who's influenced who in these blood paintings that are coming out now. So
yeah, I see a lot of copies of stuff that you've done, basically.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's one story, and I don't even want to say the guy's name because I don't want to promote him. But this guy he used to guest spot as a piercer at my shop. When I moved to California, I, quote, sold my shop to him. He used to moderate my blood page, my blood painting page, the fan page for it. And this motherfucker, the minute I moved to California, they made one payment on the shop, ransacked it. So he completely ripped me off in that business deal. Then that insult to injury became an oddities collector / blood painter. Wow, who would have thunk it? How did he ever get that idea? Oh, motherfucker. Still haven't come across the guy face to face. Here's the thing, though. He's a typical, he'll recite all the proper politics to people. He has like an Instagram model wife. He does everything right to fit into the echo chamber, and he's just a manipulative fucking con man that hasn't had an original idea in his fucking life. And it's really sad when I see people licking this guy's ass.
Yeah, because
you've all seen it. The music industry is full of that type of shit.
Right.
Yeah, body mod industry and art industry or I should say scenes are the exact same fucking thing.
Wow. All right, so what do we do? Let's see. The guy ripped you off. And
ripped me off for over $10,000. And the funny thing is, the money isn't the part that pisses me off. It rubs me the wrong way that the guy ripped off the art style and then tried to take credit for it.
Well, like stabbed you in the back with your own paintbrush, basically.
Yeah. Leeches and losers, man. They're everywhere.
Go. There you go. So what is when you let's see. So how do you go from just starting out with Carrie and then doing some stuff to doing some notable big names?
I don't know. I just started doing it, and the miracles of social media and people started noticing the artwork and started commissioning me for pieces. And since I started, I got the idea where I wanted to do portraits of people. And of course, my passion is the aged punk rock scene. And when I moved to California, I was working with SAMMYTOWN at Tiger's Blood Tattoo Studio, which was his shop. And we opened up the Museum of Oddities. Well, I mean, the Bay Area is where all the old punks go to die. So because I was out there, and of course, being that I was friends with Sammy, I had, not that this is a good thing necessarily, but instant credibility. So I ended up painting a lot of punk rock, aged punk rockers. Like I did Hewhocannotbenamed from the Dwarves in His Blood. I did Jello Biafra in His Blood. I did Jerry A from Poison Idea. The list goes on. SAMMYTOWN, of course, they did in His Blood. That was some scary blood to work with.
I bet so.
You can only imagine what kind of pathogens were lurking around in that cave.
Oh, good God. So now when Clayton, didn't you do the Joe Young portrait out of Clayton's blood? Or no? I
did, and the way that worked out was I went to go see them in Pittsburgh, and this was just a few days before Joe had passed. And Jeff has always been a supporter of the artwork. As a matter of fact, I did quite a bit of illustrations and a lot of the albums and a bunch of T-shirts and stuff for him.
Right.
And he liked the blood painting, so we were going to do an ANTiSEEN blood painting. So at the 31st Street Pub in Pittsburgh, I took his blood in the back room, and I actually took Carrie's the same weekend, so I did a painting with her blood too. And then I got that call from Jeff a couple days later. He's like, "Hey, man," and he gave me the news about Joe. And then he asked if I would paint Joe's portrait rather than just doing an ANTiSEEN painting, and I did, of course. And as a matter of fact, you were at the memorial. It was on display with his ashes and his shoes and guitar and all that.
Yeah, man, that portrait is amazing.
Thank you. Funny fact with that portrait, when I did Jello's portrait, and I respect Jello, love the guy to death, but let's just say he's not the most, let's just say he has a way of being difficult about things.
Okay.
So he said to me, he's like, I want my portrait to be noble, like Joe Young's portrait was.
Well,
and I was like, okay, fair enough. So I did a portrait of him, and the way Joe is standing, he's kind of the first portrait I did of Jello was somebody did a photo shoot of him just hanging out in a garden, and he wasn't playing it up doing the whole Jello Biafra shtick. I was like, well, I'm going to do a portrait and make him a little more human than people see like the real side of him. Or at least the calmer side of him. And he didn't like that one. He said to me, I don't like it. I look like a bitter old man. And I was like, well, Jello.
There you go.
So then that's when he started stressing me. I want it to be noble, like Joe Young's was. So I was like, okay, Jello, we'll do that. And so I did a portrait of him, and there's one where he has like this black trench coat on and these mirrored sunglasses, and he's leaning back. It almost looks like a propaganda poster, but he has a noble look. So I did that one, and Jello responded, "No. Yeah, I have sunglasses on, and you capture people in their eyes. That's the best part of your paintings are the eyes." Needless to say, I still have some of Jello's blood. I'm still meaning to do that third portrait of him, but maybe one day.
It's still waiting there.
Right. But like I said, I'm kind of poking fun at him. But I got to be honest, very few people have I ever been starstruck when I met them. And I can't lie, when I met Jello, I was. Now I got over it real quick, but it was pretty surreal to meet somebody that was so influential to you when you were a high school kid in a small town. I mean, I never thought in a million years I'd be sitting around having conversations and hanging out with a guy.
Yeah, that's really cool. All right,
so cheers to you, Jello. I'm sure if he hears this, he's going to be pissed because I know he hates when people imitate his voice.
Well, you nailed it.
Yeah. All right, that was awesome. So after this, is this when you get into doing all serial killer portraits and like Edgar Allan Poe and just
well, no, that all came together? I was doing serial killers before I was doing the punk rock folks. I kind of started out doing serial killers because of being a collector, and I always found them fascinating. They always make for a good portrait. And then the Edgar Allan Poe stuff came later. There's an interesting story that comes with that, too. But anyway, I did the Edgar Allan Poe stuff, and then after the Edgar Allan Poe stuff came the Charles Manson stuff, where I got some of his ashes and put them in the paintings, too. And what had happened was I did a painting in the Edgar Allan Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia. Wanted to use it for a show, and then it got such a good response, they now have it on permanent display. So if you go to the Edgar Allan Poe Museum in Richmond, Virginia, you'll see that. So I had a girlfriend that was a travel nurse, and we were in Baltimore, and that's where Poe lived. And there's the Poe House there, which is a different museum. So I approached them because they had known that I had a painting in the Richmond Museum, and I did a painting for them, which they displayed for a while. Now, during all this time, the Manson stuff was taken off, and it was making, like, TMZ was doing stories in Newsweek. Well, the board of directors at the Poe House decided that my blood painting, and I'm fairly certain that it's because of the Manson connection, decided it was distasteful, and they pulled it down. So I now have that. So if anybody wants the Poe painting that was in the Poe House in Baltimore, that is up for sale now. Right, but the one in Richmond's still there. Somehow, I guess they didn't think Manson was distasteful, and it blew my mind because Edgar Allan Poe was a morbid, twisted fuck. You would have thought he would have appreciated the whole Manson thing if you were able to watch from the other side. Who knows?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So you and Manson really have a history. You kind of go back a long way. Really, it didn't just start with this ashes thing, right?
Well, yeah. Before I did the paintings years and years ago, I decided to write Manson, and this was during the time when you could sell that kind of thing on eBay. And I got the bright idea. It's like, man, if I can work out a deal with Charlie, I could be selling his autographs on eBay. Sending him half the money, and we could both be making, quite a chunk of money. If you can literally just sign your name, and that's $100 right there. That's a pretty steady source of income. Yeah, sure. But the clincher is because of the Son of Sam laws, you can't. Technically, it's illegal for the inmates to profit from their infamy. So I sent him a letter. And I didn't actually talk about it, but I just wrote him a letter, trying to introduce myself, and I did a quick illustration of him, and I sent it to him. Well, a couple weeks later, I get a collect phone call from Charlie. And then he and I started talking. We talked quite a few times. I never did get him to start sending me autographs at the time because let's just say Charlie was a complex individual. So trying to say it without actually saying it. Hey, send me these autographs, we'll make some money.
Right.
Proved to be quite a daunting task, and it never really happened that way. But I was fortunate enough to get to talk to him, and man, you know, I've never met crazier people other than maybe Gigi fans that are than Charles Manson devotees.
Right.
And that's not all of them, just certain ones. Same thing with Gigi fans. But I mean, but goddamn, did the crazies come out of the woodwork when I started doing those illustrations or those paintings with his ashes involved.
Yeah, I remember when that news first dropped. You had a field day on Facebook with some of that stuff.
Well, my God, I mean, first off, people started trying to question, and accuse me of using fake ashes. Now, I may be a lot of things. I like to piss people off. I like to provoke, but I ain't no fucking fraud. I'm not going to fake something like that. I wouldn't stake my reputation on something and fake it. And they knew where I got the ashes. The guy was at the funeral, but unfortunately, the guy who I originally got them from was a fellow by the name of Tony Miller. Now, he ended up. It happened. I was in a chat room, and it was right after Charlie died, and I was talking about doing blood paintings, and I approached Jason Freeman, who's Manson's grandson, about getting his blood so I could have Manson DNA in the paintings.
Right.
At that point, I didn't even realize ashes existed because I thought they were all spread after the funeral. Well, somebody spoke up when I was discussing this in one of these just like live feeds that, hey, I got some of the ashes, and maybe I could help you. So I private messaged him and got in touch. And the story with Tony Miller was he attached himself to Jason Freeman, and because he was getting him weed and stuff, he got to go to the funeral. Now, when they were spreading the ashes, they were letting everybody reach in and spread them. So he grabbed a handful and put them in his pocket. So let's just say a lot of the Manson devotees didn't really appreciate the way that he ended up with the ashes.
Right.
So there were a lot of people that were really hating on me for that. It's like, I didn't know that. I just wanted those ashes to do a painting, and I wanted to do a painting of a friend that was going to create a relic. You know, for years, when everybody involved with Manson was gone, people could look at that and know there's a piece of him in it. And that was my motivation with it. So it turned very controversial. Then people started trying to twist it into that he sent me fake ashes and this and that. And it's like, do some fucking reasoning. His payment for the him contributing was the first painting. It wasn't me paying him money. So why he would give me fake ashes so he could have a painting with fake ashes makes no fucking sense.
Right.
But anyway, skipping it forward, Jason Freeman and a guy by the name of John Michael Jones and I are mutual friends. And John Michael Jones was Manson's confidant for many, many years. Very close to Manson, probably closer to family to him than his actual family. He was the one that found his grandson for him so they could interact. So anyway, as it turned out, Jason Freeman, when he found out that I actually was doing this project, got a bright idea. It's like, okay, well, let's make it a deal with him. And at that time, they were shooting a documentary. Buddy Day was shooting a documentary, and it was called Bloodlines at the time, and it was about Jason Freeman, the grandson, and Charlie dying and all of that. And they struck up an agreement that if I would allow myself to be filmed for the documentary and tattoo Jason with some of his grandfather's ashes mixed in the ink, that they would exchange Tony Miller's ashes, so there was no more question, and basically endorse the project. And I was like, great, that sounds like an awesome deal, because, you know, really I don't want there to be elements of doubt that goes with this. I consider it one of my more important projects.
Yeah. For sure. So
I get filmed for this documentary. They come all the way to my home, and I noticed when I was being interviewed, they were much more interested in things like, oh, so you painted Jeffrey Dahmer too, and what do you think of Charlie's swastika on his forehead? I guess got the feeling there was something more to this documentary than they were letting on, and it wasn't quite the picture that was being painted. Now, I did the interview, and they filmed me talking directly with Jason Freeman in my office with the painting and this and that. Well, let's just say Jason broke all his agreements. He didn't exchange the ashes. He didn't donate blood. And basically they got a free interview out of me where there was obvious ulterior motives. Now, JJ, who is one of the most honorable people I've ever known, the mutual friend, when he found out that I got screwed, he actually exchanged the ashes. Now, he sits on those ashes. Charlie was like family to him. He didn't want people selling them or exploiting them. Being that he knew me, he knew what my intentions were, and the fact that that when I die, I'd be more than happy for people to paint using my remains, and so I wasn't doing something that was meant to be disrespectful to Charlie. And as a matter of fact, from my perspective, it's the highest form of respect. So he didn't want to see me get screwed, and at that point, people were starting all kinds of rumors about Tony Miller sending me ashes from a barbecue pit. Which that was moronic. I collect human remains. I have a museum. I know what human ash looks like.
There's a big difference, yeah.
Right. So anyway, and also Tony Miller, as it turned out, he's now doing life in prison because it turned out he was a serial rapist on top of it. So that added a little bit of a nasty taste to the whole having the Tony Miller involvement.
Wow.
And also. Cutting back, I'd cut ties to Tony Miller because he originally contacted TMZ, and then he started spewing this bullshit that the first painting was going to be auctioned off and donated. The money was going to be donated to a victims fund for Stephen Parent. It's like, whoa! Charlie was a friend of mine. I always thought he got railroaded. Going public and saying that I'm donating the proceeds to a victims fund is hugely inappropriate and nothing but virtue signaling when he wasn't going to do that anyway.
Right.
So basically, my name started getting associated with bullshit, and that went from TMZ to Newsweek, and all this bullshit was constantly getting spewed. But anyway, going back to the whole thing is JJ exchanged the ashes upon agreement, and the funny thing is, when I sent him the ashes that Tony Miller sent, but let's just say there were certain things about those ashes that made them stand out. When they cremated Charlie, they cremated him in a wooden box, and people had put in a lot of little personal effects in the coffin with them. So there were these black chunks that were in the ash that you usually don't see in cremains. Well. When JJ got the ashes that I had gotten from Tony Miller, he compared them anyway, said, well, they're legit anyway, but it was nice of him that he stood up, knowing I was going to go forth with the project, which he had apprehensions about, but he supported me because we were friends. And I think now he understands where I'm coming from and is cool with it. As a matter of fact, TMZ did a story I honored the agreement. I was going to tattoo Jason Freeman, the grandson, with the ashes, and I ended up tattooing JJ with the ashes, a big portrait of Charlie Manson. And there's a story of that in TMZ too, if you look it up.
Oh, cool.
Which they were, of course, disrespectful, calling him a psycho fanboy and all kinds of stupid shit. But TMZ will be TMZ.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So anyway, that's a whole story. And there's also I did a whole blog on called "So You Want to Know How I Got Charlie's Ashes?" Because let's just say it's a long, twisted story. They could write a whole fucking book just on these ashes. So I mean, there's more detail and talking more about the haters and stuff. And you'd seen the podcast or the blogs, the video blogs that I did, responding to some of the shit. But yeah, it turned into a giant source of drama. But it drew attention to the artwork. And so far, I've done 5 of the paintings. They're all in very reputable places. The first one, Tony Miller, on my recommendation, sold it to Zach Baggins, and it resides in the Haunted Museum in Vegas. So they have the first one. The Museum of the Strange in Tombstone, Arizona has one. Steve Truit has one on display. Captain Gordon Straub at Timebomb Timebomb Tattoos and Piercings and Oddities shop has one on display, and he has a world-class collection. So I mean, all of them have been put in places where people can actually go and see them, and hopefully they keep being passed on where they're on display, because it's one of those things when everybody involved with Charlie's gone, and obviously Charlie's been gone for a while, people are going to remember the guy, good or bad. He's a Rasputin, Aleister Crowley type character that's not going to be forgotten, so people can actually go and look at a piece of art which ended up being done in my blood. Oh yeah, also JJ donated blood, so JJ's blood is in the last few of the paintings that I did. So there's a part of JJ in those paintings, there's a part of myself in those paintings, and then there's of course Charlie's ashes in there. So people can look at that, and it's a real piece of human beings that they're well, at least Charlie, that they're fascinated with, so they can look at a piece of him and really put it in perspective that, man, this guy was real, and I'm looking at a part of him right now.
Right, because you never did it for money, right? It was just something you really wanted to do.
No, I mean, I got no problem with money, but that's not a motivator. I mean, the proof of that is I don't play the game. If somebody does something shady to me, I don't care what their status is. I'll publicly say, fuck them, and I don't care if I'm burning a bridge or not. My main priority is to create something that outlasts me when I'm gone, that people can look at. Money is incidental, but money is nice. I mean, I'm not opposed to making cash off doing artwork, because that's how I do make a living, and I like to eat. I'm a fat fat guy. I want some dinner, goddammit. So yeah, I don't have a problem with making money, but what I have a problem with is people compromising their soul, their artwork, and their integrity to make money. If you can stay true to yourself and make cash, more power to you. If you got to lick somebody's ass or sell out to pander to some group or just compromise your integrity in general, it's just not worth doing, in my opinion.
Right. You got a lot of notoriety, like from TMZ, Rolling Stone, even Ripley's got involved, didn't he?
Yeah, Ripley's did a article. I've been really trying hard. My buddy George the Giant has one of the Ripley cartoons done about him. And if you get a Ripley cartoon done about you, you get a pass where you can go to any Ripley's anytime you want and get in for free. And I've always been a fan of Robert Ripley anyway. In fact, I consider him as one of my influences as far as my collecting goes. So I really want them to do a panel on me. And what the fuck else do I have to do? I look like I've changed myself to look like a fucking demon, and I paint in human fucking blood, including Charlie Manson's ashes in those paintings. Make a fucking cartoon, Ripley. I deserve to be in your goddamn museum.
That's right. I second that. You even painted Ripley, right?
Yeah, Robert Ripley was one of my early ones, early paintings. I painted him and P.T. Barnum, both of which used to hang over my museum doors. Now, I still have the Ripley one, but Gordon from Timebomb, Tattoos and Curiosities in Frederick, Maryland, got my P.T. Barnum out of me. How could I say no, though? He traded me a deformed fetus. You know, I couldn't say no to a baby. So,
well, what more could you need?
Right.
So now it brings me to, how did you and Rick Fisher of Sick Rick Mask get into this collaboration?
Well, Rick and I have been friends for quite a while. I mean, I first noticed Rick when I went to a Murder Junkies show in Cleveland, and I saw his original Gigi mask that he did. And I was like, that's fucking cool.
Right.
So I eventually found him on Facebook, and he and I became friends, and he only lives about 2.5 hours away from me. So I got a hold of him and was like, hey, man, can I come in and check out your studio? I mean, I'm really interested in what you're doing. And we hit it off, and I don't actually drink all that much, but he always gets me out on the town drinking and shit, so we always have a good time. And when all this Manson stuff happened, I went out to visit him, and we just started, brainstorming. It's like, hey, what do you think? Because he already had done a Manson mask.
Yeah.
And
some really cool ones, yeah.
And he offered to do a Manson tribute mask where he painted it to look like my blood paintings. And he did a prototype where he got one and I got one, and we put some of the ash in each of the eyes of both of them, and we came up with a decision. It's like, look, man, I'll sacrifice some of this ash. Let's do a run of 10 so people can get these. So we did a run of 10, and there's actually, I mean, if people are looking to get one of these masks with Charlie's ashes in the eye, they come with a certificate of authenticity with my blood thumbprint, a print of the original blood painting. And I think he's only charging $800 for them, which is cheap because it's a lot cheaper than what those paintings go for.
Right.
So if you want a little piece of Charlie, contact Sick Rick Fisher. Just look up Sick Rick online. There's still, I think, 3 of them out of the 10 that we did left. So there's a couple of them if people want to get a hold of one that it's still possible.
Oh wow, cool. Yeah, we'll link up all this stuff on our show notes and stuff. Your pages and his pages and stuff like that. So what are you doing now?
Now I'm basically sitting in quarantine doing a hell of a lot of nothing. I've been doing this podcast called Hanging Out of the Box, which has been really fun. I don't know if you've watched any of the episodes, but it's myself, a guy named Mike. I'm going to butcher his last name. He goes by the name of Ocho. He's an actor. He's in a movie called John Light on Amazon Prime, one called El Coyote that you can get from pay-per-view. Really cool guy. He was he was a gangster, and he has I don't know if he was MS-13, but he has all the facial tattoos and stuff. And the guy got sober, basically found God, and this Republican tattooed face actor. So he's one of the panel. The other guy is a guy named Blast Zone Mike, who's, I don't know how to describe him other than super fan regular guy. He's so regular that it makes it fucking awesome. There's no pretense with this guy whatsoever. And he's the one that put the show together. Another guy, Jonathan, who was the kid in Sleepaway Camp. He was the teenage boy. So he's a lot of fun. He has that, everybody loves Sleepaway Camp, because of that ending. Kiki Navarro, who is a psychic tarot reader. And anyway, Kiki's a independent, definitely more more of a Democrat. Jonathan is a Democrat with Trump derangement syndrome. Mike is a Republican, as well as Ocho is. I'm a centrist. I'll pick out good and bad, and I'll throw them out. I'll antagonize both sides. But I mean, the nice thing about this podcast and what makes it more interesting is it's not partisan. It's actually people that completely disagree on things, and we'll get in very heated discussions about this shit, especially Jonathan, who really has severe Trump derangement syndrome. And we'll go at it, not agree on anything, but at the end, we walk away loving each other. We have each other's back. And not very often do you see people with differing opinions that can actually get along. And that's the one thing that I think is really good about this show. And it doesn't really matter what the subject of the week is. The fact that in the end we can get along, talk politics, and not hate each other in the end, people really need to take a fucking lesson from. Because now, of any time, people they don't have to like each other, but they need to fucking cooperate. It's not a political issue. Get through this fucking economic crash and this, well, I think it's a lot of fear mongering, the whole COVID-19 isolation thing. We need to get through this, and it's really not the time for the political fucking fights all the time.
Yeah, it's basically the unfriend me now generation. Just unfriend me.
Yeah.
I can't talk to you.
Agree with me or delete me.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you probably noticed from my Facebook, I like actual diversity. So I have people of all philosophies on there. And living in California, I definitely learned what it was like to be amongst the liberals. So The thing is, I lose a lot of the left wingers though, because they have that philosophy of you better agree with me or I'm just going to delete you. They want an echo chamber. They don't want to hear people. They definitely, for the most part, don't want to actually debate a subject. Well, because their philosophy 9 times out of 10 is based on emotion, whereas the conservatives is based on logic. So the conservatives aren't quite as nice and up with people. Kind of don't have that kind of philosophy. They're a little more abrasive, but the left wingers believe what they believe, and they hate anybody that doesn't. And when it comes down to it, the fact that they generally, and I'm generalizing, of course, the fact that they dislike basically every single, not only do they dislike Trump, they hate everybody that voted for him. They have a bigger hate toll than the fucking Klan does. They hate more people than hate groups hate. Yeah, and they do it in the name of self-righteousness. And I can't help it to notice that. And just recently, I mean, if you follow my recent post, I'll post something asking a question, and they'll get on there, and people that I thought were friends in the real world will tell me I'm retarded, tell me I'm stupid, start insulting me. And I mean, I'm willing to mix it up and debate with them. They usually don't like the results, and that ends up with them coming out attacking, trying to school everybody on the way they think. When you don't agree with them, they get super insulted, start insulting you and throwing out, doing name calling and all that. And then they end up playing victim and blocking you. It's a weird dynamic. And I can't lie. I always thought of myself as centrist. I mean, I'm libertarian more than anything else.
Right.
Also, I'm starting my own podcast, the Lice podcast, which is Low Income Celebrity Entertainment, which is just going to be a one-on-one kind of podcast where I'll talk to. The first episode's going to have Jeff Clayton on it because he's an old friend, and we have a good rapport. So I'm sure it will be a good conversation. Yeah, Hammerlock already agreed to be on it, as well as a few others. So I'm going to do that. And I've done a few video projects over the years, so it'll be nice, and it's kind of a fun thing to do while we're all kind of on lockdown. I mean, there ain't no live shows. You can't even go to the fucking movies. Podcasts and the internet is how we're going to be entertained and interact for at least another little while. So
yeah, I'm excited to hear your show. I think it's going to be really good, especially with get Clayton on there to get you rolling, and after that you'll be wide open.
Right, you were cutting out on me a little bit, so I didn't hear all that, but
I said I was just excited for your show to get started. Once you have Clayton on there to get you rolling, you should be running wide open.
Oh, yeah, it's undoubtedly going to be good for Clayton because, I mean, the guy is just super charismatic. He's a great storyteller. I mean, the guy, had he not been turned into a punk rock Southern Fried icon, he could have definitely been a public speaker.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Those Facebook Live shows he's been doing on the history of ANTiSEEN are really, really good.
He has the timing of a stand-up comic. And what I mean by that, when he tells a story, it flows properly. And I dabbled in trying to do a little bit of stand-up, and that's fucking hard, man. It's not hard to come up with funny content. It's hard to deliver it and make it funny to the audience hearing it. And the same with any kind of public speaking. I mean, he really is talented on that. I don't know how many people have praised him, but I was noticing the other day when it was the 6th anniversary of Joe Young passing. I listened to the radio show that we put out, and it had clips of the eulogy. When Jeff was speaking for Joe Young at that eulogy, man, it'll bring you to tears. And obviously he was emotionally distraught but he still delivered, and it's an amazing, very moving thing to listen to. And it's obviously genuine, but it also flows well. I mean, a lot of people, myself included, you'll kind of stammer and stumble when you have something to say when you're speaking to a crowd. He's completely comfortable doing it, and it shows.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. All right, man. So I guess once we're getting ready to wind down, anything else you want to add? Anything you want to push besides the new Lice show, of course?
No, I assume you're going to link my webpage to it,
yep.
humanbloodpainter.com. And if people want to commission blood art, please get in touch with me. Also, give one of the podcasts I'm involved with a listen if you have some free time. And we all have a lot of fucking free time lately.
Yeah, that's
right.
for sure.
I'll tell you, man. You know, I was truly impressed when Kiss donated their blood to make a comic book. But I mean, you are blowing it out the top with your work.
With that Kiss comic book, they each donated like a drop.
Yeah,
and also, it might have really happened, or it might have just been a gimmick that they said happened.
Yeah, I mean, we don't know for sure, but I'll tell you. Whatever, I was impressed with that, back when that happened.
Oh yeah,
but,
I was a huge Kiss fan back in the day.
Oh yeah, me and Dale both were.
Yeah, yeah.
And that may have been in the back of my mind and in my psyche that influenced me wanting to paint in it. But I mean, another thing that obviously had something to do with it was, the wrestling thing, juicing, Jeff Clayton juicing on stage. When I had my band, I would do that. So I learned to use blood and performance art, and I always really kind of liked it. And it's gotten to the point now, fake blood just doesn't do it for me. It has to be real fucking blood.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think it's funny how things just kind of come into play, and the dominoes fall, and sometimes it inspires, and this time it did. And I'm very thankful of anybody that takes notice of the blood painting, because it's definitely become something that I've been passionate about, and it's what in my opinion, I'm gonna leave behind. I don't have any kids, so what's gonna be here when I'm, nothing but a memory is gonna be those paintings. So.
All right, Donnie, you got anything to add?
No, I just want to say, I think it's the work is awesome. The colors, the contrast in the colors, man, it just blows me away when every time I look at it.
Thank you. I appreciate that a lot. Yeah, I mean, I was a portrait artist and a tattooist that specialized in portraits before I started using blood, and yeah, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from it, and I appreciate anybody that notices, comments on, and likes the artwork.
Yeah, it's kind of funny when we were talking about it. Some of my friends were like, they kind of didn't get it, but my daughter Raven, she is a huge fan, and she absolutely loves the Joe Young portrait because she was a big Joe Young. She's an ANTiSEEN fan. Actually had an ANTiSEEN birthday for her 8th birthday party. So,
oh my God, did you post a was there a cake or something? Or am I thinking of it?
Yeah, there's a black cake. It actually had sugar barbed wire and blood.
Yeah, I saw that. That definitely brought a big smile to my face. It came up the things that come up in your Facebook feed.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. So she's a big fan as well, so I thought I'd throw it out there.
But your daughter must be awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right, man. I will holler at you when we get off here. I'm going to talk to you about Joe Young.
Absolutely. I'll be here.
Okay. And, man, we really appreciate you, everybody. I want you to know today it was Ryan Almighty, professional weirdo, human blood artist, and just a killer guy.
Absolutely, and we appreciate you having us.
I appreciate you guys having me on, man. I always love getting a chance to hear my own voice.
And we will link up all your website and all your social media stuff to our show notes and social media.
I appreciate that. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, brother. Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.
Bye. Bye.